Welcome to the channel. My name is Crawford and this is Virginia's for Lowriders. We're getting back on it. We have a very short amount of time to get this thing done. And as of right now, I need to pick up the pace. I've been working on it all week. I'm going to just jump right into showing y'all exactly what we got done. It's a good bit, very time consuming things, very tedious mechanical things. I'm not a big mechanical person. I'm a mechanic for a living, and I've been doing it for a long time. I prefer not to do the mechanical stuff. I'd rather just do fabrication, but it's part of it. This car's been sitting before I had it for 12 years or something like that. Basically, I drug it out of the woods, threw hydraulics on it, some fresh brake pads on the old crusty rotors, cleaned up the intake, put a carburetor on it, blah, 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 make it run, exhaust, all of those things. I didn't do a whole lot else, though, and I've been driving it for 5 years. So this week, I'm going to show y'all what we've been doing. We'll just jump into the footage. Just me working, nothing crazy, just a bunch of mechanical work, chipping away, trying to get this done. Coming out here every night. I did come home today, took me an old people nap, which was, them old people naps, they're necessary sometimes, and today was one of those times for sure. But it's kind of late, so we're going to try and get some stuff knocked out before get up in the morning and do this all over again. So watch the footage, don't forget to subscribe, go back and check out all the other random videos that we have on the channel, and yeah, we're going to attempt to keep the rambling to a minimum like I say all the time, but it never really works out. So let's just get to it. Okay, everything that y'all just saw up to this point, completely took off all of the accessories, threw a new water pump on there, new gaskets, new hoses, installed some lower ball joints, been cleaning up some stuff. I really don't want to get into painting the frame this go around. I think what I'm going to end up doing is just throwing some cheapy spray paint on here just to cover this up so it doesn't rust. But all of this is in desperate, desperate need of a power washing. Because again, I put hydraulics on it and drove it for 5 years. It sat on the ground in my yard, well, in the gravel, for that entire time of me owning it. It was laid out on the frame, so critters, mice, and all of the other things, and rain, and all of that. All that gunk is just all over the frame. Everywhere where there was control arms and stuff, there's this thick, nasty, pollen-looking stuff. It needs to be power washed off, so I'm not concentrating on that right now. I'm not painting the lower control arms. We're going to be working on the upper control arms today. I was going to do a separate video, but I don't think I have time. So we'll just do that in another video. I'll give an explanation of what I'm doing in this video. I've been going back and forth on extending them or not extending them, and I still haven't made up my mind. So what I think we're going to do is going to spend probably 2 hours sandblasting them because they're disgusting. And after I scrape all the gunk off of them, get all those cleaned up, probably call it a night, come back out here tomorrow and start cutting them up and wrapping them and putting new bushings and ball joints on all the things. But I got distracted. The engine, to tidy this up for a stopping point for now, I picked up this week some 5/8 hose and some 3/4 inch hose. There's a line that comes from here and a line that comes from the water pump. Those go back into the firewall, which we pre-drilled. There will be bulkheads going into the firewall, and from the bulkheads it'll go to the heater core. From now, because I don't have time, it's going to get a loop behind the firewall just so it looks complete. And that way when I'm ready, pull the loop off, slap the box in there, and make all that functional. Because as of right now, mini nuts isn't a month from now, and it's already getting warm. So heat's not really a necessity just yet. But I'm getting distracted. I keep losing track of what I'm thinking. I'm going to make those hoses. I'm going to show you all a really easy way that I cut those hoses. And then we will go to sandblasting for hours and hours and hours. So if you're a carpentry guy, a plumber guy, a homeowner of a little old shack built in 1952 like I am, most likely you do your own plumbing stuff. Everything in my house is PVC at this point. These are PVC cutters. They are ratcheting. I have the ratcheting in different brands, different sizes, and the non-ratcheting, the ones you just squeeze. I like the ratcheting ones. These open up pretty big. This one goes up to 1 5/8 inches, I guess. Which seems kind of big. But regardless, I have found that these work awesome for coolant hose. So we'll waste a little bit right here just for an example. Rather than trying to cut this with like a knife or scissors, these cut through it effortlessly, and it leaves you with a very nice, clean, square cut. Highly, highly recommend. You can get them for like $10, $12, maybe cheaper if you didn't get a ratcheting version. Highly recommend. So what we're going to do, I need to buy a T. I need to take some final measurements of whatever this hose is. There's this little tiny line. This is a factory intake that I sandblasted and clear coated, and it looks disgusting now, but it's not aftermarket. It still has some weird stuff going on with it, like this coolant line that runs behind the distributor. So I need to get a T to put into here because I can't reuse this really crappy crimped thing. So for now, we're just going to run the hoses to the firewall, and I'll come out and cut this. For some reason, I had it in my mind that I put a water pump on this car. After taking it apart, I most definitely did not put a water pump in this car. I didn't even put hoses on the car. When I say I neglected this car and just drove it, it's worse than I thought it was. Like, I don't think I've ever taken the drums off of the rear end until I pulled the car in here a month and a half ago or whatever it's been. And it needs wheel seals. So, regardless, I pulled the upper radiator hose off. It says 02-10-1987 on it. that has been on there the entire time. And what's surprising is it looks pretty good. But the way it was rotated, and it was always clean, well, cleanish, I 100% assume, because as you see, for all of the builds that we got going on, I do this with every one of them. Except for this one. But normally, they all get new brakes, they all get new bearings, they all get new hoses, like just freshened up, like Rock Auto order. You can tell a true connoisseur of crappy 80s, 60s, 90s cars by the man's magnet collection. And disappointingly, there's probably 15 of those that I didn't get a magnet. That's the whole reason you buy from Rock Auto, I believe. Like, there's no other reason. It doesn't have anything to do with the cheap parts. You're just trying to stack up your magnet collection. And speaking of Rock Auto, I wasn't done ordering parts. I didn't order inner and outer tire rods or pitman arms or something else. So I made another Rock Auto order on Monday. So the steering won't be put back together quite yet, but we got a lot of other stuff to do. We're getting distracted. I'm gonna make those hoses real quick and then see how far I can go standing in front of the sandblast cabinet. Really surprised this stuff has held up for all of those years. It's pretty wild. I think that'll look pretty good. Have them sort of relaxed, something like that, not super, super tight and bound up. And I'll figure out some kind of a T this week. You gotta scrape off the big chunks because the sandblaster will not touch dirt. It just kind of bounces off, at least mine. Mine's not anything fancy. It's a cheap Eastwood cabinet. Does not work on dirt at all. Well, that was about an hour. Everything that I left on there, as far as rust goes, is probably going to get cut off. All of this will be trimmed. All of this will be trimmed. So, what I missed, it really doesn't matter. They look significantly better than they did. It is now 12:30, so I'm going to go inside and pass out and try to make it out here tomorrow. But, you know, my friends and I have, the plans just change constantly, so who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Most likely we'll, I don't know, do randomness and waste most of the day, and which is really bad because I really need to get this car done. But, you know, it's cool. Like I keep saying, if this doesn't make it there, I'll probably make more people happy by bringing the Mazda. You never know. All right, got a couple things to run through real quick as far as these control arms go. So I figured out a way to sort of accurately measure exactly how much I added to the control arms that have been on it. And I came up with an inch. With that, I have been, because that's set up for, like I said before, hopping and three-wheeling and all of those things. This car, it doesn't do those things. It just goes up and down. With the body drop now, if I three-wheeled, I would probably just crush the quarter panel because the body is so much lower than it used to be. It would just ruin stuff. So, with the 1-inch extension, I was running 3/4 of an inch of spacer or shim to pull the control arm back to where it was supposed to be, basically stock. I needed a little bit more now that we have the body drop. I'll put up a picture of what the Caprice looked like on 13s before and where we're at now. Basically, with those two things, previously on a 13, when it laid out without the body drop, the fender wasn't close to the wheel. When I had the 14s on there, it laid on the tire, which I don't want because I want to be able to float everywhere like I do with the Mazda. I usually drive the Mazda about this far off the ground. I did drive the Mazda today. It felt pretty good. I haven't fired that thing up in like a month because it's been snowing and terrible weather, and it's like 70 today. But regardless, running 3/4 of an inch of spacer, pulled it back to where it was almost where I needed it to be, which was actually a little bit of positive camber, meaning I need a little bit more negative camber. So I'd be running about 1 inch of spacer, give or take. So with that said, I don't need to extend these control arms at all. I just need to make them stronger and make them fit with the car being low, basically. So I have to cut this whole section out because when the car lays out and the control arms are at a crazy angle, the control arm almost touches, well actually it does depending on where the cylinder's flopping around at because I don't have sleeves in there yet. Depending on where it lays out, the cylinder touches the control arm. And that's not what we want because it just tears stuff up. So these are going to get trimmed just like those guys. Trimmed all of this out here. We're going to cut these edges off. We're going to plate the inside on the sides, and we're going to cap the top. Basically just to make it strong again after doing all of the things that we've been doing. You can get away with just cutting a lot of stuff off these. I've done it. I don't recommend it. This is the way that I usually go about this, just to put strength back in it. Again, if you're a lowrider guy and you stumbled across this channel, those arms, the black ones, were built for a car that was going to potentially be hopping. I just ended up cutting them a lot to fit this car. I'm not hopping this car. I just need them to be stronger than they are after I cut 3/4 of the arm up. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to zip these bushings out because, as you can see, they are 100% trash and just crumbling. I'll show you the best way that I've found to do that, and we're just going to start hacking away at these things and then slapping some plate back on there. And it's probably going to wrap up the day because that's going to be pretty time consuming. So yeah, let's just get to it. This is pretty straightforward. This same exact thing happens on Fords, Chevys, maybe some Dodges. I don't know about Dodges. I've never owned them, but Fords and Chevys for sure. Zip these off. Air hammer. This front thing is just a washer. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Sometimes they're glued on from years of sitting there. And this portion, very straightforward. I know not everybody has an air hammer, but this is just the way that I've found that works best. GoPro, stop recording. GoPro, stop recording. I got a few problems here. As you can see, I can't see, and it is storming really, really bad. Wow, the rain calmed down, but every time I open the door gets sucked out of my hand. So the rain calmed down for now. Oh, jeez. My vacuum's not attached to the door. That's a third problem. Wow. And at some point between the power going out and me making it over to just sit down and hopefully the power came back on, the camera lens on my GoPro broke. So I think we're done for today, which I was trying to get a full-length video out, and obviously that's not going to happen. Definitely didn't expect it to suck the door out of my hands that hard. As I was trying to say before, the camera on my phone just went blank white for whatever reason. I think it's going to do it for this weekend. I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose some trees if this kicks back up. This is supposed to last for like 2 hours, so 2 hours is going to put me right at the time I should be inside editing. So I guess we're done for today. Appreciate y'all watching. Sorry it wasn't a full video. Hopefully I can knock out the control arms later tonight. If I can, this video will be longer. If the power comes back on, I'll come back outside. But until then, I'll see y'all next Sunday.